Hello and welcome back to Rage Gaming. My name is Hollow and we're once again back for the tier list videos. We are now on intelligence. These are the best options I have or think for melee intelligence weapons. So that doesn't include your sorcerer staffs and otherwise. These are your physical weapons you slap the enemy with, and hopefully these are the best ones. I have 13 options here, although it's technically 12. And as I always say in these tier list videos, all of the weapons you see in this video are some of the best intelligence weapons you can pick. I am just rating them against one another. As always, the grades goes as followed. So S is basically your perfect and unique weapon. A is incredible but lacks the same possibilities as those S tier pick weapons. B is fun and effective, but it has a important weakness compared to directly A or above. And finally, C is still a brilliant option. It's just that it has limited effectiveness, or in today's video, it's totally replaced and outclassed by another weapon that does the same thing. Speaking of which, I think we'll start with exactly that. The Sepik, the only one for this video. This is, of course, the Bastard Stars. This comes from Astel and is his boss weapon, remembrance weapon. It's a shame that, you know, it's totally outclassed by another weapon. It is a fun and effective intelligence melee weapon, and it's nice to see a flail get an interesting design because they're woefully weak in this game and underrepresented because, yeah, totally new in Elden Ring, and there's only a few of them, and none of them are that good. The Ash of War on this weapon looks and feels incredible and is good, but it's still outclassed by the one-for-one comparison I'm about to make, and you probably know what that is. The Wing of Astel is an S tier pick weapon on the other hand. A curved scimitar, which of course is super effective with its roll catching potential. You run these in power stance, it's got one of the best movesets in the game flat out. The damage this does is great, especially because we can buff it up and then get loads of attacks really quickly. Mixing this with its heavy attacks, which provide a unique ranged attack that you can combo not once but twice, doing it quickly or charging it up for double shots. And it costs no FP to do that, which is absolutely outrageous. Then there's the Ash of War, which is much like the Bastard Stars, a little bit less wide, but honestly it's better because of that. You can place it more accurately and you can spam this out and deal so much damage. Because it has multiple ticks of damage, it can also be great for trading and catching people out in PvP. So the Wing of Astel is literally the Bastard Stars, but with a better weapon type, moveset, damage output, and of course Ash of War. So the Bastard Stars, man, it's a good weapon. I like it. It's just absolutely outclassed by the Wing of Astel. With that double comparison, let's go to another with the Crystal Swords and the Rotten Crystal Swords, which I put in both B grade. You can, of course, one-hand these weapons, or, like I like to do, power stance them, which is way more fun. You get the double straight sword power stance moveset, and that leads to a lot of fun potential. Rotten, of course, has the benefit of the Scarlet Rot build-up, which is rare for the weapons in this game, so very good because of that, but then it has less raw damage and actual scaling and damage potential than just the default one because of that. We could run, say, 2 Rotten for that, or 2 the regular for the raw damage. One of each still works really well because they have the same stats to use them and the same scaling potential. It's surprisingly a strength-focused weapon with a C strength scaling and then D in dex and intelligence, meaning that it does not scale particularly well, but like I said, you can buff up the damage with consecutive hits and other magic increasing things. I think they look cool, I think they feel good, but they're not crazy impressive, and they also have a pretty bland and simple Ash of War you can't change. Now let's look at an A tier pick with the Death's Poker, which is a weapon I absolutely love, and I love using this weapon specifically in PvP. Its base moveset is that of just a simple greatsword, and it doesn't scale insanely well either. The power and wonderfulness of this weapon comes down to its Ash of War, which is a 3-part option. You can press it and do an explosion on yourself. You can press it and then do a light attack and send out this wave of black fire, dealing damage and damage over time, also creating a safe zone for you to stand in. Or you can do the Ash of War and do a heavy attack, which slams that orb and does a huge explosion around you. Interestingly, the poke originally in the start of the Ash of War does damage, so that works in trading. Then there's the bomb itself, and then the follow-up whether you do a light or heavy. The damage output of that is very good, and like I say, it makes for great trading and therefore really good fun in PvP. It's still very strong in PvE though, don't get me wrong, especially when you got an enemy just standing in the fire. I guess I put this as an A grade, not an S tier pick, because it's statistically not crazy strong. It's just that the Ash of War really carries. Let's do another B tier pick, this time with the Sword of Saint Trina. I really like this weapon, and I also like Saint Trina and the lore of that. I recently spoke of this. It's a fun weapon to use because it has that sleep property. We can use the Ash of War and buff it up. So we've got a cloud that puts people to sleep, and then it's like purpley buffed up with sleep, dealing sleep as you attack. That leads to a lot of fun potential in the open world with so many enemies you can put to sleep, which leads to critical attacks. So very, very fun to use, and it looks great too. Much like the other B tier weapons here, we have a straight sword weapon, which works well in power stance with another Sword of Saint Trina. It's just the output is not as crazy as, say, some of your other straight sword options in the game, especially the Faith ones. In the current patch, though, the Ash of War was buffed to come out quicker, so that does make these weapons better, and I do think using them leads to a very unique playstyle, so I really like them. But I also don't think their output is anything ridiculous. They're just strong, fun, and cool weapons. Let's go for another A tier pick with the Fallingstar Beastjaw here. A colossal weapon with a very simple moveset. Just like any of the colossal weapons, it's basically a hammer. Slow and powerful, very strong, very effective. If you're using it for its base moveset, as repetitive as it is, the damage is good, and like any of these weapons, you can buff it up even more. The real power of this weapon comes from the Ash of War, which is hilarious, just zapping this gravity on a target at ridiculous range. You can do it from downtown, you can spam it, it'll interrupt bosses and cause them to stagger for criticals. The output is great, and it looks gnarly as well. I just find its moveset very simplistic, very repetitive, very easy to predict, leading to basically having to trade in PvP to get this to work, or over-relying on the Ash of War to kill people. So I do like this weapon, but it's just not an S tier pick, it's just an A tier. What is an S tier pick though, to no one's surprise, is Moonveil. Even now, after its nerfs in earlier patches, it's just so good. Everyone always says that it's one of the best weapons in the game, and it certainly was the strongest for a good while there. As a katana, you've got your katana moveset, always good. Statistically, it's strong. And then you have the Ash of War, which is just so cool. The sheath and then unsheathing with like a magic uppercut or wide sweep, depending on what you need in that scenario. It does so much damage. It looks so cool. You can get it really early in the game too. I will never not have fun using this weapon, even if it makes me feel a little bit dirty using it in PvP. Let's look at another A tier pick with, say, the Starscourge Greatswords here. An interesting combination of weapons, these colossal swords. You get one, but two in one, so that leads to pressing light attacks to use both of them, and L1 just blocks. Unfortunately, that does mean you have a pretty simplistic moveset, where you're basically just pressing R1 all the time. We of course have our crouch and roll attacks, sprint attacks, and basic combos, but they're all essentially slow swings or slams. Still, that feels good and does good damage, especially like these weapons are all buffable, so you get some serious AR and damage, and you combine that with the hilarious Ash of War that pulls people in, then you slam down, you can do great AoE damage, it's great in single target as well. It's just very easy to manage and predict, and of course interrupt. Still, I think the output's great, a lot of people swear by these, and I can understand why. Here's a weird one for you. The Sword of Night and Flame is still an A tier pick to me. It was one of the best weapons in the game for a while there, just like Moonveil, and it was pretty much the speedrunner's weapon of choice in that first patch. Super cool and a bit weird in this video because it's also a Faith weapon, but I'm going to include it in this one instead of Faith because goddamn, there's so many good Faith weapons. Essentially, you've got one of the coolest looking swords in the game, and we don't really even care about its base moveset. It's all about that Ash of War, whether you're using the power of Night or Flame. With Night, you're able to shoot a literal laser from your sword as if you're a magician without actually really going hard on sorcery, which is awesome. That is incredible in boss fights for single target burst, but if that's not what you need, you can use Flame, which is a wide sweeping AoE with shockingly long range to it. Great for clearing areas, works in many scenarios in single target. Yeah, I guess I don't need to say much more about it. It got nerfed, it's still really strong, and I really like the weapon. Let's drop back down to a B grade then, and maybe my top pick for B. This is the Lorettas War Sickle. It is basically your only intelligence halberd option and provides quite a unique playstyle. It also looks really clean too. The stats are pretty solid. You've got C scaling across the board for strength, dex, and intelligence, so you can get some very respectable AR out of this thing. It comes with its own unique Ash of War, the Lorettas Slash, which is pretty familiar to me as someone who likes to watch speedruns, because so much testing and skips were using this weapon. Even without the right stats, it still works as an upward leap, which allows you to bypass barriers you otherwise couldn't reach. In combat though, it's solid. Its light attack combo is quick and effective and very vertical, surprisingly. The output's solid, and as always, magical physical means we can buff it up. It's got a really strong heavy attack combo, below. Yeah, while I don't think it's anything to go crazy over, I do think it's very solid and a great option and perfect if you're into this kind of weapon as well. Okay, we're down to our last 2 picks here. Let's put another one into the A grade. This is the Royal Greatsword, which I spoke recently about in the strength weapons tier list, so I'll be quick on this one. A really nice design coming from Best Boy Blythe. You have a Colossal Sword, which were buffed in the most recent patch. Great range, great damage, even better in this patch. The all-powerful Colossal Sword Crouch Poke. This thing performs well in all content with its baseline moveset, and the fact that it is, yeah, a bit of magic, bit of physical. What's most unique about it though is of course the Ash of War, where you do that Wolf's Assault flip, downward slam, and then explode in ice. So frost buildup, that's always good. The downside is the fact that you get stuck in that animation, but you do get hyper armor, so it's likely you're going to get it off. Leaves you a bit vulnerable, I suppose, when you are using it, so I don't really think this is an S tier pick, just because it has that vulnerability. Still, the DPS potential of just spamming the Ash of War cannot be ignored, and you can even stagger bosses with that. Super fun weapon, one of my favorites. Whoops, at this point in the video when I'm editing this, I realized I completely forgot about the Ruins Greatsword for some reason, which is obviously a top tier pick. I would put it just behind the Royal Greatsword at an A tier. You know, it's another Colossal Sword, its base moveset's really good, its stats are really good, its AR's really good, the Ash of War is really good with its range, and it's got a unique R2 heavy as well. I just think its DPS potential is behind the Royal Greatsword due to the absolute ridiculousness that is the Ash of War of the Royal Greatsword. So that's where I would place it on this list. Sorry for forgetting that. But last but not least, for our last weapon for the list, it's the Darkmoon Greatsword, and it is my favorite intelligence weapon for sure. You know, the Moonlight Greatsword has been in all of the games, and it's just always fun. It's always cool. There are many different versions of it. And I really like this version, actually. When you look up close to it, it's got that icy design to it because, yeah, it does ice damage. We can self-buff it up, and that makes it glow, dealing even more damage on its base hits. And it's got the Greatsword moveset, which is always good. Of course, where the real power of this weapon is its heavy attack, which sends out that moon effect, that wide sweeping cleave that goes really far and comes out even quicker in this patch. You spam that out on a target, say a boss, it's actually going to do so much damage and stagger them at range. I literally always enjoy using this weapon in all of the games, and again in Elden Ring, it's still so fun. While I still prefer Bloodborne's design than this one, this is a close second. And it's definitely one of the highest AR magical weapons you can find in the game, so it's obviously an S tier pick, and the top of the pack for me. Speaking of which, let's just review. Why don't we quickly reorganize the list so left to right, left is the best. It doesn't look like I actually have to make that much change. In the S tier, I believe the Darkmoon is the best magical weapon you can use for melee, closely followed by the Wing of Astel, closely followed by Moonveil, although I'm sure many people prefer Moonveil over the other two. For A grade, it's hard to pick between these two. I would say the Royal Greatsword wins over the Fallingstar Beastjaw just because its moveset is so much more versatile and reliable. This is very repetitive, but goddamn is it strong. I think the Starscourge beats over Sword of Night and Flame because its base moveset is very strong, whereas the Sword of Night and Flame is basically all in that Ash of War. Much like the Death Poker, which isn't as quite as crazy, I just love it in PvP. Then for the rest of the list, I think it's fairly reasonable, just the power of the output potential. I'm putting Sword of St. Trina just above the Crystal Swords because it's unique and it's a sleep weapon. There's not enough in this game. But that is my list and the ordering of it. Let me know what you think. Would you change things around a little bit? And in fact, is there any weapons that maybe I should have included in this? There are a couple other intelligence weapons, but I just don't think they compete with this list. With that though, we just have Faith and Arcane left to do. If you have any suggestions for that, let me know in the comments. And if you have enjoyed the tier list series so far, please do drop a like on it so we can keep making them. For now though, thank you very much for watching. I've been Hollow, you've been you, and I'll see you next time.
Josh, Cotton, and Hollow with the videos, dropping the humor like a hammer on your tippy toes, bringing entertainment on a daily arrangement to take our insanity and turn it into entertainment. Yes, I said entertainment twice, to reiterate that it is nice to look into your faces on a mostly daily basis when you let us in your homes to make the whole world a stage. Goodbye.